Of course, the Supreme Court's work is vital not just to a region of the country, but to the whole, vital to the protection of the people's liberties under law and to the continuity of our Constitution, the greatest charter of human liberty the world has ever known.
So that is Donald Trump's pick for the Supreme Court. That is Neil Gorsuch. And frankly, there's only one thing you need to know about him right now. Ted Cruz was just on Fox with Tucker, and Ted Cruz says this is a home run. That this has Ted Cruz's basically seal of approval. It's a home run. Trump delivered on his promise. So for any conservatives out there who are worried, maybe were wondering about this pick, I think that's a pretty good indication that this is a pretty decent pick. If Ted Cruz really likes him, because that was a big deal. That was a big deal for Cruz in the campaign, because Cruz was very against Trump. We all remember in the primary, Cruz was very against Trump, but he ended up supporting Trump because Trump promised to pick someone good for the Supreme Court, and Cruz on Tucker said that Trump delivered. So what do you think? Do you think Trump delivered on his promise? It seems like Trump delivered on his promise. Gorsuch seems to be, it's said that he's a conservative justice. He talked a lot about the Constitution in his speech tonight. He talked a lot about Scalia. He is a big admirer of Scalia, has been so. He's worked for the courts. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he doesn't end up like a Justice Roberts or anything. I'm not necessarily an expert on this guy. You know, I've looked up some different resources, SCOTUS blog, other resources about him. I'm not necessarily an expert on his history in the court and all of his rulings, but it seems so far that it's a good thing. When Ted Cruz says it's a pretty good pick, you know, maybe you can take that to the bank. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with there. So the next step in all of this, by the way, I don't think I introduced myself. This is Beyond Reason Radio, and the reason I call it Beyond Reason Radio is because I, your host, Michael Yaffee, am the voice of reason, the voice of truth, in a world that is beyond reason. And with the left today, and actually parts of the right today, there is a lot of stuff that goes on in the news every day that is beyond reason. So I want you to be able to come to a place, come to a radio show, hear a voice that is a voice of reason through it all. So hopefully I can do that for you. Hopefully I've been able to accomplish that for you, and will continue to accomplish that for you. And I will be a voice of reason in all of the craziness that has happened in the first couple weeks of Trump's presidency. And by the way, we have Tom Benson producing as well tonight. He is here as well. Tom, how are you doing tonight? Tom,
I'm happy.
Okay, good. That's good. So you like his pick?
I was a one-issue voter, and the issue was the Supreme Court nominees, and it looks like he's picked a good guy. You know, a lot of people some people may feel a little bit dismayed that he didn't pick Cruz. The thing is, Cruz has too many enemies in the Senate and would never.
Well, and I told people that from the beginning. There's no way the Senate would approve Ted Cruz. Now, a lot of conservatives wanted Mike Lee then, but Mike Lee's so great. You know, he's so great in the Senate. Do we really want to lose them in the Senate right now? So that's interesting. One issue voter guy seems to be happy with this so far, unless something else comes out that we don't necessarily know about. It seems like a pretty decent pick. So there is something I want to get to, though, when in terms of this show is Beyond Reason, and that is all of the craziness. And people say one of the reasons Trump announced this tonight is to get people distracted from all the craziness. But there seems to be so much craziness over what Trump has done so far in his presidency with executive orders, especially the immigration ban, but really everything he's done. And I've noticed this on both sides, and I want to know if anyone out there agrees with me. Because on one side, because I actually, I have a list of his executive orders and things he's done so far. Okay? I've looked through it all. And I have one side, the big-time Trump supporters, who are acting like he is the best president ever already, that he has accomplished more than any other president at this point in his presidency, that it's the biggest deal ever. Okay? And I have the other side, the leftist side, who they're protesting everything he's doing. Like everything he's doing is going to destroy the country, is destroying the country, is un-American. Can't believe it. We have to go out and riot and protest in the streets and make a big deal out of everything. And I've noticed that. And while I agree that Trump has done some good things, and the SCOTUS pick is one, it is a really good thing. And I agree. And actually, outside of this SCOTUS pick, most of the things I really like that Trump has done have been things that are not getting as much attention. Like the hiring freeze, in terms of the bureaucracies having a hiring freeze. I think that is maybe one of the more important things he has done. And also the regulatory freeze, that if you have one new regulation, you have to get rid of 2 other regulations. That is much needed when thousands and thousands of pages of regulations have been approved every year under Obama. So that's another thing that I think is so good. But despite all that, I'm going through everything he's done, and a lot of it is not necessarily unprecedented. It's good. Some of it's good, and it's different from Obama. And maybe that's why we're reacting this way. But nothing, a lot of this stuff is not as big of a deal as everyone is making it out to be on both sides. And I was just thinking, is this where we are now? Where now everything, is this what's going to happen for 4 years? That everything that Trump does, you're going to have one side, rah, 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 pom-poms, yay! And then the other side, protest, un-American, impeach, impeach. And I'm thinking, this has just gotten really out of hand. This has just gotten crazy. For instance, outside of the immigration thing, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to how the Democrats have reacted to this. And like I said in the show last week, the Democrats are overplaying their hand, I think, because if they keep complaining that everything is the end of the world that Trump does and he should be impeached, what happens if Trump, I don't think he's going to, but what happens if Trump actually does do something pretty bad? No one's going to listen to them. Because it's a cry wolf situation. If you make a big deal out of every small thing that Trump does, when Trump actually does a big thing, no one's going to listen to you because you've made a big deal. Nothing seems as important anymore. So that would be my advice to the left. My advice to the right is let's make sure, for one, that he's doing the right things, but let's maybe wait until he actually accomplishes some really big things. Like, for instance, the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. The Democrats made a huge deal about that. And in the Dakota Access Pipeline, while it's a good thing, it's not worth all the hysteria. And that's what I don't, the hysteria over everything that has happened is just, and I understand that's where we are in this country. I've talked about how we're in the we generation, the us versus them generation, and it's going to happen for another 10 years. But what really worries me most is if both sides continue to go on with this hysteria. And we'll see. The Democrats are probably going to make a big hysteria over Trump's Supreme Court pick. It's the end of the country. He should be impeached. He doesn't know what he's doing. The Senate should filibuster. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen is people are going to start tuning out on both sides. And especially people that are maybe, lean one side or the other, but not too much into politics. They're just going to start tuning out because it just seems crazy. There was some, I think it was an I need to look this up now. There was an ESPN reporter or sports star or something who tweeted out about the protests at the airports that, and she actually supports, what they stand for, the protesters, but says, do you really have to, I understand what you're doing, but do you really have to make it inconvenient for everybody at the airport who's trying to get to where they're going? Yeah,
I saw that, but I can't recall her name.
Yeah,
either.
I need to look that up. I had that saved somewhere. And I'm thinking that's a very reasonable response. It's kind of like the Black Lives Matter people who would stop the highways. They would go out and they would protest in the middle of the highways and stop traffic. And there would be black people in the traffic wanting to go to work. And they're like, I could support what you're doing, but you're getting in the way of my job. Is this really what you want to accomplish?
Her name is Sage Steele.
Sage Steele, yeah. And she tweeted out and she got a whole bunch of backlash for that. And this is what I'm saying. If we make everything Trump does hysteria, and there's not a lot of, Obama, when I looked it up, he had 8 executive orders by now. Trump has had, I think, like 15 or 16. So he's had more. But a lot of them are not huge deals. It's, review this policy, review that policy. And that's what a lot of Obama's was, too.
My name is Nate.
The thing is that Trump made, I think part of it is Trump's a master marketer, that Trump is just so good at marketing what he's doing. Everything is a big production. And so that's part of it. But I think also part of it is it's the Democrat strategy to make hysteria out of everything he's doing, to make it seem like he's the worst thing ever. And I just wonder if, it's just gotten crazy on both sides. And I think a lot of it's unnecessary. Can't we just be reasonable people that say, if we're a Trump supporter, yeah, he's doing some good things. I mean, there's a lot of things he really needs to accomplish, and it has to be done through Congress, and those big things are coming up. But it's yeah, he's a good thing. I'm really happy with him so far, but not make it like he is the savior of the world. But then the Democrats, I'm telling you, to a lot of you Democrats, you're overplaying your hand. To make hysteria over everything he is doing is just crazy. So does anyone agree or disagree with me out there? 47916-5400, text to 23680. We're going to play some audio of the reaction from Democrats over Trump's immigration ban, which is just from certain countries, and we'll go over some facts as well. And then there was the firing of his acting attorney general, which some Democrats just went crazy over. And I'll show why that's not necessarily unprecedented either. Not everything Trump is doing is necessarily unprecedented and tyrannical, even though that's what we're making it out to be. 47916-5400. You can text to 23680. We are on Facebook Live as well. I'm seeing comments on there as we speak. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com.
Months ago, as a candidate, I publicly presented a list of brilliant and accomplished people to the American electorate and pledged to make my choice from among that list. Millions of voters said this was the single most important issue to them when they voted for me for president.
This is Beyond Reason Radio, the conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong, the angel on the right shoulder telling you the good things, the right way to go. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by producer Tom Benson. That was Donald Trump earlier this evening announcing his pick for the Supreme Court. He picked Neil Gorsuch, who seems to be a pretty good pick, a conservative pick. Ted Cruz actually said it's a home run. So that's actually a big deal, because that was a big deal for Ted Cruz. It seems like a lot of conservatives like this pick. I've had some people on Facebook Live talk about how this is a great pick. So good. I mean, pretty good day for conservatives. We'll see what the Democrats do. Like I said, I'm not quite sure if they're going to try to filibuster, because they might save that for the next pick if that happens under a Trump administration. Now, let's take a call here real quick before we get into some more stuff. Got a Michael in Claremont. Michael, how are you today?
Man, I tell you what, I'm happy as can be.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Bill Pryor is a friend of mine, but hey, we'll get another shot at it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was. There was talk about him initially on the pick that he was a really good conservative.
Well, Trump mentioned him in the debate.
Right.
And so I was hoping for him, but we'll get another chance at it. Hopefully we'll get several more chances at it. But you know what, Michael, I tell you what, I'm speaking as a professional counselor, and the reactions from the liberals doesn't surprise me at all. People who suffer from arrested maturity have a very narrow emotional inventory. And all of this hasty opposition and there's an element of evil in it, like we saw in the Women's March, but most of these people just don't have the emotional inventory to reason like you do on your show, or think, or we've lost the art of contemplation.
Okay, it seems, you make a good point, actually, because it seems like all we do is react. instead of really think and contemplate what is going on.
That's adolescent.
It is, yeah, it is. And except these are supposed to be adults, right?
Well, they're grown up, but they're not adult because they're suffering from arrested maturity.
Now, you said you were very happy with this Supreme Court pick. Why? Tell me why.
Well, his record, his character, the fact that he clerked for Judge White, I think he'll be a partner or a friend with Kennedy. Hopefully,
I think
Kennedy,
he clerked for Kennedy too, right?
He did clerk for Kennedy, and hopefully Kennedy will feel comfortable enough to retire. We'll get another opportunity at it.
I heard somebody say that earlier this evening. I forget who said it, but they think that this could be a possibility that Kennedy will retire because he likes this pick and will feel then, he'll be comfortable to retire.
Well, he's got to be 80 years old.
Yeah, he's definitely pretty old. All right, Michael, any closing thoughts?
Well, we just need to keep everything in prayer and stand firm.
All right, Michael, thank you for your call. So he seems to be pretty excited about it. So it seems like a pretty decent pick. It seems like a pretty decent pick. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Is there anyone else? Is there anyone out there who maybe didn't like this pick? Maybe you thought someone would have been better? I know a lot of conservatives wanted Ted Cruz or Mike Lee to be picked. I didn't really think that was going to happen anyway. But interesting to think about that. So I talked a little bit as well about the Democrats because there could be a lot of crazy Democrat response to this whole pick. But there's been just crazy response to everything that's been going on. And Tom Benson, if you could get the audio ready here, I have audio of some of the response by the Democrats here. I think the first cut I have up there is Elizabeth Warren, right, at the airport. This is what happened over the weekend. Trump does an immigration ban. He limits from certain countries where right now they have a problem with terrorism and refugees. And ISIS has said they want to use the refugee influx to get into the West, to get into Europe and the United States to commit terrorist attacks. Now, a lot of people say, well, they haven't done any terrorist attacks in Europe. In the United States, so why should we be afraid? But they have in Europe. The refugees have been able to get into Europe and commit terrorist attacks there. So maybe, we always complain that we're reactive, that the administrations are reactive. They should have been able to stop this before it happened. So Trump's trying to stop it before it happened, and now nobody likes it. So very interesting. But this is the Democrats going nuts over this. So what I talk about that is hysteria. They're overplaying their hand. People are going to stop listening to them. This is Elizabeth Warren at one of the airports protesting Trump's immigration ban.
We have all heard about this order that President Trump has given. We have all heard about this order that President Trump has given. It is illegal. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is unconstitutional. It will be overturned. It will be overturned.
It's like zombies. Chanting zombies.
On anyone. An attack on anyone. For their religious beliefs. For their religious beliefs. Is an attack. Is an attack on the very foundation of democracy. On the very foundation of democracy.
Follow the bouncing ball, boys and girls.
It's like she's conducting. You're exactly right.
How come so often we see video of her or pictures of her shaking her fist and screaming?
It's unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional. It's against the law. That's what it is. But it's just, they're chanting. I kind of think people on Facebook like saying, "Oh dear God," because it's like some of the stuff she said is just crazy too. What? How? Just tell me, how does this undermine democracy? Huh? Any answers? Any answers out there? How does this undermine democracy? Since when do immigrants, people, foreigners, have rights under the Constitution? They don't. This doesn't undermine democracy. And it's not like he's banning all Muslims from everywhere. It's not even like he's doing that much. It's just certain countries.
And it's temporary.
And it's temporary. Now, I will admit, just like anyone else, that the rollout was a complete disaster. Because what they should have done is made it clear that people who had visas and already permanent residents could be able to get back and travel into the country. I mean, that should have been clear from the beginning. But to act like we're just going nuts, it's not that unreasonable, and it's frankly not that unprecedented. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We'll get some more of the crazy reaction from the Democrats in the next segment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast, your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Today I am keeping another promise to the American people by nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch of the United States Supreme Court to be of the United States Supreme Court. And I would like to ask Judge Gorsuch and his wonderful wife, Louise, to please step forward. Please, Louise, Judge. Here they come. Here they come.
Yes, Donald Trump picked Neil Gorsuch, who seems to be a pretty good conservative pick. He has Ted Cruz's seal of approval. Ted Cruz said it's a home run. It seems like a lot of conservatives are happy with the pick. Tom Benson, our producer, says he's happy with the pick. We took a call earlier from conservative, very happy with the pick. A lot of people are saying it was the best choice out there. There's some rumors going around that was either going to be him or Thomas Hardiman. He picked Gorsuch. So we'll see what the Democrats do, because the Democrats are just loving going against Trump this week, going crazy over. Maybe you think there'll be any more tears? You think there'll be any more crying like this? Can you play the Chuck Schumer cut for me? This is Chuck Schumer's reaction of Trump's immigration ban from those countries in the Middle East.
This executive order.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Was mean-spirited.
Oh, he's crying.
Un-American.
Why? What was mean-spirited about it? He said he was going to do it in the campaign, for one. Two, it's not unprecedented. There has been bans on visas in the past, which Democrats have done, and I'll get to that. There has been immigration bans in the past. This is not unprecedented.
Here's what is mean-spirited about it.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Schumer is upset that Donald Trump is doing what he said he would do.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. That's a very good point. Now, the other thing that happened, and this happened later, is Nancy Pelosi was at another airport, and her mic was failing. Her microphone was failing. So her and a bunch of Democrats up there and a bunch of libs protesting, because this is what we do now. We protest everything. We have hysteria over everything. No matter what Trump's going to do, Trump could, I'm trying to think of something that Trump that's so innocuous and they'll protest.
Well, I heard somebody else say he could discover a cure for cancer. He still would get booed.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. You would discover the cure for cancer, and they would say, I don't know. Why do you hate cancer? I don't know what to go. This mean-spirited, hateful, un-American cure for cancer. But this is Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. Her microphone cuts off, so this is what they did at a protest at the airport.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
So, there you go. Apparently, we should just let everybody. This land is your land. This land is my land. Illegal immigrants should all come in, and everybody in the world come in, even if you might be a terrorist. No. Somebody said, no, make it stop. Somebody commented, no, we should just let them all in. Yeah, come on in. Come on in, everybody. Yep, here we go. There's 10 billion people in the world, and a lot of them probably want to come here, and some of them probably want to do us harm, but, this land is your land. It's not the American people's land anymore. No, it's everybody else's land as well. So we should just let them all in. Come on. The whole thing is frankly ridiculous. Now, I posted this story. By the way, you should friend me on Facebook if you have not friended me on Facebook already, because I'm posting a lot of great stuff, getting a lot of reactions. But I posted this story from Daniel Horowitz that got a ton of shares on my Facebook page. And it pointed out some of the hypocrisy from Democrats on this stuff. For one, after 9/11, and this is still law, by the way, Congress passed the Enhanced Border Security and Visa Entry Reform Act, which addressed many of the insecurities in our visa tracking system. That the bill passed the House and Senate unanimously. Democrats, including Dianne Feinstein, even supported this. Now, what the bill says is it cut off non-immigrant visas from countries designated as state sponsors of terror, which this just expanded. Trump's ban really just expands that. That's all it does. President Bush and Obama later used their discretion to waive the ban, but Trump is actually following the letter of the law, the very law sponsored and passed by Democrats. Interesting. At present, only 3 of the countries, Sudan, Syria, and Iran, are designated as state sponsors by the State Department. So the current law in the books that was passed after 9/11 was to ban non-immigrant visas from sponsors of terror. But I thought this land is their land. This land is your land. This land is our land. I don't remember protests over this. Does anyone? Why can't the poor Iranian family be able to travel here on vacation? Isn't this their land? Your land, our land? The whole thing, there's so much precedent for this stuff in the past that it's just crazy. There has never been in the history of this country just letting everybody in. There has always been discretion by the executive branch and the legislative branch against letting certain people in for certain times for certain reasons. All Trump is doing, now Trump does go farther than a lot of Democrats have in the past, but all he is doing is restricting immigration from certain parts of the world that he, and probably not enough places, honestly, but that he and the administration believe, and some of this, and a lot of this list came from Obama and the Obama administration. He's just limiting it temporarily because of the threat of terrorism. Just like the Democrats limited people traveling on visas because of the threat of terrorism. Just like Obama limited temporarily Iraqi refugees because of the threat of terrorism. And this is just expanding on that. Yet they're making it, the Democrats are making it like it's the end of the world. The Democrats are making it like it's un-American, that he's ripping apart the Constitution, even though the Constitution does not apply to foreigners. That's completely obvious. And actually, another Democrat out there, we talk about Democrats going nuts over this. There's so much out there of them doing this. But another Democrat, liberal, he says he's nonpartisan, but we all know. Fareed Zakaria of CNN. He had to make a little monologue, and he's so smart, isn't he? About why Trump is doing this and why it's so wrong and why it's against the law. This is what he said on CNN.
So there's really no rational basis for this policy. What explains it then? I suppose it's what has explained so much of Donald Trump's political career, the exploitation of fear. From the birther campaign to the talk of Mexican rapists, Trump has always trafficked in fear-mongering. This time, to stoke those fears and present himself as the country's protector, he chose to punish ordinary men, women, and children who are fleeing terrorism and violence who are willing to brave the odds, bear the hardships, and separate from family and home, all to try to come to America. These people are the roadkill of Trump's posturing. But something else is being destroyed along with it: the image, reputation, and goodwill of the United States as the beacon of the world. As someone noted over the past few days, Donald Trump seems to want to turn off that lamp on the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, here we go again with the whole Statue of Liberty thing. Oh, jeez. Like I said, apparently the Statue of Liberty stands for letting all immigrants and refugees in no matter what. Is that what it stands for? Is that what it means? Instead of people yearning to be free? Okay, he says there's no rational basis for this. Well, actually, there is a rational basis for this, since ISIS said they would use refugees to infiltrate countries. Since 2 Iraqi refugees infiltrated this country in the past and tried to commit acts of terror. Since refugees in Europe have actually committed terrorism in Europe, there is some rational basis for this. Now, I will say that Trump has used fear-mongering in the past. There's no doubt about it. But then at the end of this, he talks about trampling on the Statue of Liberty. Who's fear-mongering now? Ugh. And by the way, what's amazing with the hypocrisy in all this is these are the same people. Fareed Zakaria is the same person who, when there's a shooting, someone dies of a gun, wants to ban guns. So apparently him and other people wanting to, have all this fear-mongering over guns because of an issue with guns. Now when Trump does something like this for immigration, oh, that's just fear-mongering. Such hypocrisy. So there's actually a reasonable voice, not just me. If you don't want to hear what I have to say about this, I'll have to play some audio from Rand Paul, because he was on Fox this morning and he actually commented on this, and we'll play that in the next segment as well. If you don't want to listen to me, maybe you'll listen to him. He actually had some reasonable things about this, and we'll talk about, because what happened. One thing that happened is Trump fired, you fired. He said to the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, and a lot of people, a lot of Democrats thought this was unconstitutional. How could he do this? This was so unprecedented. Yet, it was not unprecedented. And I actually will give examples of Democrats, including Obama, doing the exact same thing in the past. And I'll go over that as well. 479-116-5400, text to 23680. We're on Facebook Live as well. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
I have always felt that after the defense of our nation, the most important decision a president of the United States can make is the appointment of a Supreme Court justice. Depending on their age, a justice can be active for 50 years, and his or her decisions can last a century or more and can often be permanent.
Now, there is he's right on that. Now, this guy is 49. That is Donald Trump talking about his Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, who seems to be a pretty conservative justice. Now, Trump is right about one thing. It could have lasting effects. It is really important by the presidency. He's 49, so I don't know if he would go 50 years. He'd have to live to 100, but maybe, who knows? But maybe a good 40 years. But there is one thing about that I don't have any problem with what Trump said. It's just the system. I think there should be a constitutional amendment for Supreme Court justices. I believe there should be term limits on Supreme Court justices. I really do. I don't think they should be lifetime appointments. Not only that, but I would also, and I'm not the one who came up with these amendments, I just like them. A lot of it comes from Mark Levin's book on this, and other people have, put this out before him as well. Another one that I really like, a proposed amendment that some people are throwing out there, is that Congress, with a 2/3 majority, should be able to overrule a Supreme Court decision. So it has to be a supermajority to do it. But that way, because they're supposed to be co-equal branches, we're giving the judicial branch way too much power. And when they make a ruling that's like that goes completely against the will of the people and Congress and the president, there should be a way to at least counteract it. We don't want to do it by simple majority, but a 2/3 or maybe even a 3/4 supermajority to go against some Supreme Court rulings from Congress, I think would be a good thing, because it just seems like the judicial branch has extremely too much power, exactly what Trump was saying there. So, but it seems like a good pick. We've talked a lot about that. We've talked a lot about the Democrats' reaction to things Trump has done. It's the age of hysteria, apparently. This is what we do. I think normal people are just going to start tuning out politics. But, a lot of people say I'm a reasonable voice. I try to be a reasonable voice. But another person I think is a reasonable voice, who I seem to like more every day. Every time I hear him speak, I seem to really like him. I'm glad he's in the Senate. He was my second choice for president, and that's Rand Paul. And I just happened to catch Rand Paul's comments earlier today because he was asked about Trump's decision to fire the acting attorney general, Sally Yates, which is not unprecedented. It's not tyrannical. The president has the legal authority to do it. And so he was asked about this on Fox News, and I thought he actually had some really good points, kind of what I've been saying. So maybe if you don't want to hear from me, you'll hear from him. This is what Rand Paul had to say about Trump's decision to do that.
Well, I think she doesn't understand the Constitution or her role in the administration. And so, no, I think it was the right thing to do. The Constitution doesn't apply to people who live in other countries. It frankly has no application to them. And the immigration laws can be modified in our national interest. And the president is clearly given this authority under all of the statutes concerning immigration. So people, when they say, not letting people in from a certain country is unconstitutional, they may not like it. It may offend their sensibilities, but it is not related to the Constitution or prohibited by the Constitution.
Did they roll this out properly, do you think?
Sorry, I will continue that in the next cut. But the first part, he says he's exactly right. For one, that's her role in the minute. Sally Yates didn't understand the Constitution. They keep saying this is unconstitutional. There's nothing unconstitutional about it. The Constitution does not, apply to people of other countries, for one. But two, the president has the authority under existing law to be able to limit immigration and visas. It's in existing law, and in fact, past presidents have used it. Jimmy Carter used it after the Iranian Revolution and the taking of hostages of the embassy. He limited immigration from that country. The president has the legal authority to do it. Like Rand Paul said, you might not like it, you might disagree with the decision, but to say it's unconstitutional is going too far, and I think he's exactly right. So Rand Paul continues on here about the rollout and other things about what happened with this whole immigration policy is what he said.
Well, I think the biggest snafu was the idea that some were interpreting it to being if you are permanently here with a green card that you're affected. They quickly made sure that people understood that it wasn't meant to be those who are permanently here. Many people, I know people, I have friends and family members who know people who have been here permanently for years and years. It wasn't meant to disrupt them or their travel. And so, but I think we have to understand there is a problem.
Several hours later.
There's
a problem, what?
Well, the problem is that 40% of those who do visit our country on a visa overstay their visa. On 9/11, 2 of the hijackers were overstaying their visa. 2 of the hijackers were traveling back and forth on a visa, and no one was paying attention. In my hometown of Bowling Green, 2 Iraqi refugees came. One of them's fingerprints were on an IED, and yet we let him come in anyway. And then he proceeded to want to try to buy Stinger missiles to attack us while living in my hometown. So there is a problem. Something needs to be done, and we aren't doing enough to understand who's coming and whether they're obeying our immigration laws and going back home when their visa expires.
So, I think that's a very reasonable response. And remember, this is Rand Paul. He's not someone who's a huge Trump fan. Was definitely not a huge Trump fan in the primary. But what he's saying makes a lot of sense. For one, he's saying that the rollout was terrible, and I agree. The rollout was terrible. They should have made it clear that it didn't apply to people who already had visas and permanent residence. They should have made that clear in the beginning. That was the biggest mistake. It added a lot to the chaos. Why they did it that way, it seems like Steve Bannon had a lot to do with that. Is kind of beyond me. But he also says, look, we've had instances in the past where refugees have been able to get through and they want to commit terrorism. There is a problem here. People overstaying their visas. It's not with unprecedented and out of his power to do these things. Now, in terms of unprecedented, a lot of people say him firing the acting attorney general was unprecedented. Well, I have I have an interesting list here I found from the Daily Wire that talks about exactly how this is not unprecedented. And some of the examples they give about how presidents have done similar things in the past. And it's very interesting. And it starts with none other than Barack Obama. Obama fired General Stanley McChrystal. Remember that? Remember the whole controversy over that?
Sure.
He fired General Stanley McChrystal in 2010 for criticizing him and Joe Biden. Now, a lot of people didn't like the decision, but he had the legal authority to do it. Nobody questioned it back then. There was a whole bunch of controversy over that, but he did it. Number 2, another Obama one. Obama fired National Security aide Jofi Joseph for tweeting out criticisms of Obama's staff that were colorful. He tweeted out this: "I'm a fan of Obama, but his continuing reliance on dependence upon a vacuous cipher like Valerie Jarrett concerns me." That was one of the tweets he said. So Obama fired him. He had the authority to do that. Not unprecedented that Trump's doing the same. Another one, Bill Clinton fired Surgeon General Jacqueline Elders for suggesting that children learn from masturbation. So there you go. I think that was nobody questioned that. Number 4, Clinton also fired FBI Director William Sessions for reporting ethics violations. Another Clinton one. These are all Democrats on this list that have done the similar things.
Sure.
Number 5, Clinton fired all of his U.S. attorneys, but one after taking office in 1993. So this is what was reported in 2007. Because remember, in 2007, there was all this controversy about George W. Bush firing U.S. attorneys, saying, oh, how could he do this? Do it for political reasons, blah, blah, blah. But he had the legal authority to do that. The only sitting U.S. attorney Clinton did not cashier was Michael Chertoff, now the Bush Homeland Security Secretary. That's what was reported in 2007. So Clinton did the same thing. He did it numerous of times. What Trump is doing is not unprecedented. Number 6, Jimmy Carter fired 4 department secretaries in 1979. Number 7, and this is probably the most famous one, and I'm sure you've all read about this or heard about it in your history class. Harry Truman fired General Douglas MacArthur over disagreements on how to proceed with the Korean War. I'm pointing this out because everything Trump does now apparently is unprecedented, apparently unconstitutional, apparently a big deal. Now, I'm not saying 2 wrongs make a right. Just because the Democrats did it, doesn't mean that it makes it right that Trump did it. What my point is, and I think he was right doing this, but the point I have to get at here is we have to stop doing this whole thing that what Trump is doing is tyrannical, what Trump is doing is unconstitutional, what Trump is doing is unprecedented. And what I'm telling, and I'm really advice to the left and the Democrats, to be honest with you, I'm telling you you're overplaying your hand here because it's not true. And it's not going to work. And people are going to start tuning you out because you're crying wolf here. And it's just gotten a little crazy in the age of hysteria. So it's been a great show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. Neil Gorsuch, chosen by Trump for the Supreme Court of the United States. Seems to be a pretty good pick. We'll be talking about it tomorrow on the morning show on Good Morning Orlando as well. There's no doubt about it. We'll take your calls and texts as well. And I'll be back on tomorrow night. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. And I'll catch you guys next time.
That nothing comes from indifference. I look